Hey, I'm John Cannell, and today on Preppy Kitchen, we're making an amazing peanut butter cheesecake. So let's get started. First off, grab a 9-inch springform pan, and we're gonna need some chocolate sandwich cookies, also known as Oreos. You want 2 sleeves minus 2, that's 30 cookies. You have 2 choices here. If you wanna process your cookies, we're just gonna process them up, but if you don't have a food processor or you don't wanna lug it out, grab your cookies. You can pop them into a bag or put them in between 2 pieces of paper and smash them up. Ooh. Oh dear. That's gonna get messy. I'll use the food processor today. It would be fine if they were in a bag. In you go. We're gonna process these up until they're nice and finely ground. If you want some bigger chunks, go ahead and just process it less. That looks good. Now in a large bowl, we're adding 70 grams or 5 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Microwave this on 50% power in 30-second bursts until it's nice and melty. Usually I'm pouring the butter into the crumbs. This should be fine though. I'm also adding in 3 tablespoons of sugar just for a touch of sweetness. Stir this together. We're gonna have a nice crumbly crust, but it'll set up in the fridge and harden. Oreos mixed with butter. This smells so good. All right, this is nice and crumbly. You can see it looks like wet sand basically, but not the sand you can make a sand castle out of. Grab your 9-inch springform pan, and I'm gonna dump these right in. Give your pan a little shimmy to distribute the crumbs. Grab a flat-bottomed glass or measuring cup and press the crumbs down. You probably know the drill, but I do wanna tell you to press, press, press. I wish people liked that song still. That's so good. Anyways, press it out towards the edge. You're compacting the pieces so they hold together. That's the magic of a cookie crust, because we're only using just enough butter to hold everything together. I'd also love to see a little reveal of the cheesecake, so don't push the crust all the way to the top, just halfway up your pan. This looks beautiful, and I wanna tell you, we're gonna make our cheesecake in a bain-marie today, which is a water bath. It's so easy, but you need one thing: extra wide foil. I'm doubling my foil up. You can reuse this, by the way, so don't throw it away. Place your pan in the middle of the foil. I'm also gonna fold the edges over because I don't want it completely shielded from the oven. I'm just making a happy, dry home for my cheesecake to bake in. You wanna do this before you put the filling in because the filling is gonna go towards the top and it'll like start falling out and you'll be really unhappy. Give your cheesecake a hug, and this goes into the fridge for about half an hour. While our crust is chilling and our oven's heating, we're gonna make this delicious creamy peanut butter filling. I need 4 8-ounce blocks of cream cheese. It's 226 grams times 4. Half a cup of sour cream. Adding sour cream just really improves the texture of your cheesecake, gives you a nice depth of flavor with that tang, and you know, it's just too dense if you're using all cream cheese. We're gonna cream this up right now. Just mix it on medium until it is thoroughly combined. You don't want any lumps here. And I will point out that my cream cheese was on the warmer side of room temperature. You can microwave it on low power for a few seconds or pop it into a nice warm cozy place to warm up. I'm gonna let this run on medium-low for about 3 minutes. I really wanna get that cream cheese and sour cream well combined before we go on to the next step. And by the way, aside from being delicious and beautiful, this peanut butter cheesecake is so good for a make-ahead dessert. You can make this and it lasts for up to 5 days in the fridge, or you can tightly wrap it and it stores for months in your freezer. And if you want a magical, delicious bite of cheesecake, just cut the cheesecake, wrap the individual pieces up, and you can defrost them and enjoy. While that's mixing up, I'm gonna fill my kettle up. I want about 8 cups of boiling water for my water bath. So this can get started and just be heating on low while we make our filling. And yes, I need to polish this kettle really badly. Don't judge me. It's time for a scrape down, and I want to tell you something about the speed and the whole paddle situation. When you're making a cheesecake, the goal is for it to be creamy and amazing, and one of the ways we do that is a lower temperature and also having no air bubbles in the cheesecake, or as few air bubbles as possible. If it's filled with air, it can change the texture, it changes the way it bakes, and it can crack because the air expands the oven. So we're mixing this on medium-low for a long time instead of on high for a short time. Let that continue mixing, and while it does, grab a scale or a measuring cup because we're gonna get our peanut butter ready. Now it's time to add 1 cup or 260 grams of a creamy, amazing peanut butter. Ooh. I'm using a scale because I hate having the measuring cups with peanut butter stuck inside of them. It's not fun. That's great. I also want 1 cup of granulated sugar, 200 grams, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'll point out that I'm not using a natural peanut butter. This is a processed peanut butter, so it has some emulsifying agents, it has some sugar, and it has some salt. That makes it delicious and creamy. If you want to use a natural peanut butter, the kind you have to stir together, stir your little heart out. I would add in maybe a 1/2 to 2/3 of a teaspoon of salt to have that nice salty balance. And I would probably add in maybe 3 more tablespoons of sugar. Okay, we're gonna mix this up again on medium-low until it is nice and creamy. And yes, you will be scraping the bowl down because you want a homogeneous, beautiful mixture with no streaks. This smells so good, but there's a problem. Peanut butter on the inside, pure white on the outside. Scrape that bowl down. We want it all mixed together nicely. I'm letting that mix on medium-low, and while it does, I'm gonna crack my 4 eggs and make sure there are no shells. Room temperature, of course. Usually I add my eggs in 1 at a time, waiting for the first to mix, but today, I'm just gonna give this a really light beat to break the yolks up, and we'll pour it in a little bit at a time. There's nothing wrong with giving your batter a head start. So add some of the eggs, let it mix for a while, add a little bit more. The eggs here are adding a little bit of richness, of course, but also giving the cake structure so it holds together. There's no flour in this, so it's just gonna let everything set up really nicely in the bake. And you'll notice I've been on medium-low the whole time. I don't wanna whip air into this. You're gonna thank me when your cheesecake comes out perfectly flat and beautifully creamy. Glossy and amazing. Back to mixing. Let that incorporate for just a few seconds, and then we're gonna add in 2/3 of a cup or 160 mils of heavy whipping cream. This cake is gonna barely hold together after baking, meaning it's gonna melt in your mouth. It's not like a brick of cream cheese you're eating. It's gonna be light and fluffy with delicious peanut butter chocolate vibes all over. And I'm also adding in 1 teaspoon of vanilla. A little bit goes a long way in just making a beautiful, aromatic, delicious cheesecake. That looks nice. You can see I have this beautiful thin batter. Oh my gosh. Grab this mixing bowl. I'm gonna finish mixing this by hand and just scrape the bowl down as that happens. The annoying thing is because this isn't a pure white cheesecake, you're gonna see the lumps of cream cheese when you cut it, and it's also gonna have a different mouthfeel. So mix, mix, mix. Oh, and as you can see, my kettle is ready. Take that off heat, grab that crust out. You can see it's nice and chilled. And honestly, if it's been 20 minutes, that's gonna be fine too. I say half an hour, but 20 minutes will work too. Pour that luscious peanut butter filling right into your chilled crust. Oh my gosh, this looks so good. Make sure you get every last drop out. That texture is so beautiful, I could almost cry. I might shed a tear. This gets a little shimmy, but first, I'm placing it into a roasting dish. Now, shimmy, shimmy, shimmy. You do want to level the top, so just grab a little spatula and smooth that out so there's no ridges around. Those could burn, and also we'll be topping this with more deliciousness later, and you want a nice base. Ooh, that's hot. Now we're gonna pour in 1 inch of boiling water right in there, but it's better if you do this when it's in the oven. So let's get this in the oven and then pour. Less chance of burning, always a good thing. Now, carefully pour in 1 inch of that boiling hot water. This will give it a beautiful steam bath so it doesn't brown up too much, and it's also going to let it bake really evenly. Your cheesecake's done when the center gently jiggles like Jell-O when shaken softly. That was take 20 of that. All right, it's gonna need about 1 hour and 15 in my oven, but you might need 15 minutes less, 15 minutes more. Just check it occasionally. After it bakes, crack the oven open and let it just hang out with the oven off in that warm space for about 1 hour before you take it out to let it cool. And it's gonna chill for about 4 hours to overnight. It really needs that time to set. We'll be back. Towards the end of your chill time, we're gonna make a really easy and delicious ganache to top this cheesecake off. I want 3 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate. You do not have to use chopped chocolate. You could use chocolate chips, but they're more difficult to melt. You could use bittersweet if you want that extra chocolatey, less sweet flavor. Break these up, and we're gonna give these a nice fine chop. Ganache is really simple, but it can go wrong if you burn the chocolate. And that happens because you're just trying to melt a stubborn piece or two. And the way to solve that problem is to finely chop everything so they're all small pieces floating in the cream. My chocolate's all chopped, and right now I'm gonna add 1/3 of a cup of heavy cream right into a microwave-safe bowl. You could make this on a double boiler, but it's really easy in a microwave. We're gonna scald the cream, meaning heat on high until it just starts bubbling and then take it out. Depends on your microwave and the dish you're microwaving it in, so keep an eye on it. My cream is steamy, so I'm gonna add the chocolate right in there. And if it's not hot enough or you do have some stubborn lumps, you can microwave this on half power. Give it just a little bit of a stir so that everything's sitting in the cream and let it stand for a minute. You can also cover this up just to preserve some of the heat. Then we'll stir it up. That wasn't a good cover. Found a better cover. Perfect. 1 minute later, let's take a look and see how melty this is. We're just gonna stir this together. It's not gonna look great until it looks perfect. So it looks like all the chocolate's nice and melty. Chocolate melts at a really low temperature, so the secret is to not overheat it. You really wanna let it just sit out, hang out, and absorb the heat from the cream, and then give it a stir. Look at this. That's a nice, beautiful, silky ganache. If you do have any stubborn lumps of chocolate, you have 2 options. Go with it because no one's really gonna notice and it's all gonna solidify anyways. Or half power for maybe 20-second bursts just to warm things up. Do not overheat your chocolate. This is ready to pour on top now. This looks a little crazy, but there's a few things I wanna show you. When I took my cheesecake out of the fridge, I noticed it had gotten some beading on top. That just happens, it's okay. I laid a paper towel flat over the top and just let it sit there. It absorbed a tiny bit of moisture. It's not a big deal, but I don't want a barrier between the cheesecake and my chocolate because then the chocolate could just slide off. I want it to stick. All right, now take our protective foil layer off. It did its job because you can tell my cheesecake baked up nice and flat, no cracks. Run a knife along the edge of your cheesecake. So it's gonna stick to the collar and your cheesecake could crack if you just opened it up. Okay, our cheesecake is out. I'm gonna use an offset spatula. You could grab a big knife if you want. And we're just going to slide it down. It tends to be just a little bit stuck. And instead of tearing anything, if you run a knife along the bottom, it should work out just fine. Slide it off. Yeah. That was the tricky part. Now we're just gonna pour the chocolate ganache all over the top. Get all that chocolate out, no need to waste anything. This looks so decadent and rich. I just need to spread it out, and I'm using an offset spatula, but you could use anything you want. This looks delicious, but I think it would look even better with a smattering of little chocolate peanut butter cups, Reese's Pieces, on the side. I'm just gonna give them a really quick chop to break them up. I just really wanna see the peanut butter all throughout on top and give it some heightened texture. The key is just to scatter these on top. Don't try and make anything look perfect. It's just a smattering of broken peanut butter cups. You can slice and enjoy your cake right away or let the chocolate set up in the fridge for a perfect slice. So decadent and delicious. It is so light and creamy with peanut butter and chocolate throughout, but it just melts and dissolves on your tongue. This cake is basically magic. I hope you get a chance to make this recipe, and if you like this video, check out my cheesecake playlist.